There's a game that millions of people have played, even though it doesn't exist. A game that's simultaneously the most anticipated and most impossible release in gaming history. A game that's probably better in our imagination than it could ever be in reality. Half-Life 3 isn't just a missing sequel, it's a cultural phenomenon, a meme, a shared delusion that reveals something profound about how we relate to video games and the stories we tell ourselves about what could be. Today, 17 years after Half-Life 2, Episode 2, we're going to explore why Half-Life 3 became more powerful as an idea than it ever could as an actual game.
Let's start with a thought experiment. Imagine Half-Life 3 was announced tomorrow. What would it need to do to satisfy fans? It would need to revolutionize gaming like the original Half-Life did in 1998. It would need to advance physics and storytelling like Half-Life 2 did in 2004. It would need to justify 17 years of waiting, expectation, and hype. It would need to be perfect. But here's the thing about perfection. It doesn't exist. No game could possibly meet the expectations that have built up around Half-Life 3. We've had nearly 2 decades to imagine what it could be, and imagination is always more impressive than reality. Every technological advance in gaming becomes, this is what Half-Life 3 should do. Every narrative innovation becomes, this is how Half-Life 3 should tell its story. We've built an impossible game in our minds, and any real game would feel like a disappointment. Understanding why Half-Life 3 doesn't exist requires understanding what Valve became versus what it was. In 1998, Valve was a scrappy developer trying to make their mark. They needed Half-Life to succeed, or they'd probably close down. Desperation creates focus. In 2004, they were still primarily a game developer. Half-Life 2 was their flagship, their identity, their claim to fame. But today, Valve makes more money from Steam commissions in a month than they ever made from game sales in a year. They're a digital storefront that occasionally makes hardware. Game development is a hobby, not a necessity. Gabe Newell famously said Valve doesn't want to make Half-Life 3 until they have something new to say. But when you're that rich and comfortable, why take the risk of saying something new when you could just not?
Half-Life 2 Episode 2 ended on a massive cliffhanger. Eli Vance dies. Alex is devastated. Gordon Freeman stands silent as the world waits for salvation that will never come. But here's the weird thing. That unresolved ending might be more powerful than any conclusion Valve could write. Unfinished stories live in our imagination. We fill in the blanks with our own hopes, fears, and desires. We imagine perfect resolutions that resolve every plot thread and satisfy every emotional need. Think about other unfinished stories that became legendary. The mystery of The Sopranos ending, the unfinished novels of F. Scott Fitzgerald. Sometimes the question is more interesting than any answer could be. Half-Life 3 exists in that liminal space between promise and reality, where anything is possible, because nothing is confirmed. Somewhere along the way, Half-Life 3 stopped being a game we wanted and became a joke we shared. Half-Life 3 Confirmed became gaming's most persistent meme. Valve announcement, Half-Life 3 confirmed. Random number 3 appears anywhere, Half-Life 3 confirmed. Gabe Newell mentions anything, Half-Life 3 confirmed. The meme became self-sustaining. We kept the dream alive through irony, not hope. We collectively decided that Half-Life 3 was too ridiculous to expect, so we'd laugh about it instead. But memes have power. They keep ideas alive when logic would let them die. The Half-Life 3 meme ensured that millions of people who never played the original games still know about Gordon Freeman and his crowbar. In 2020, Valve finally returned to Half-Life with Alex, a VR prequel that nobody asked for, but everybody needed. Alex, was brilliant, precisely because it wasn't Half-Life 3. It advanced the story without resolving the cliffhanger. It felt like Half-Life without carrying the impossible weight of being the sequel. More importantly, it proved Valve could still make great games when they wanted to. The technology was impressive, the storytelling was classic Half-Life, and the ending, well, it somehow made the Half-Life 3 situation even more complicated. Alex succeeded because it managed expectations. It was a spin-off, not the main event. It could be good without being perfect. From Valve's perspective, Half-Life 3 is all risk and no reward. They don't need the money. They don't need the prestige. Success would be expected, but failure would be catastrophic. Steam makes Valve more money than they could ever spend. Their reputation is secure. Why risk it all on a game that couldn't possibly meet expectations? This is the paradox of success. When you have everything to lose and nothing to gain, why take the gamble? Meanwhile, the longer they wait, the more impossible the expectations become. It's a feedback loop that makes the problem worse every year. Maybe Half-Life 3 was never supposed to exist. Maybe its real purpose was to teach us something about anticipation, imagination, and the stories we tell ourselves. We've spent 17 years playing Half-Life 3 in our minds. We've imagined perfect gameplay, flawless storytelling, revolutionary technology. We've created a game that no developer could ever actually make. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the real Half-Life 3 was the memes we made along the way. Because in our imagination, Half-Life 3 is perfect. It's everything we wanted and nothing we didn't. It's the game that saved gaming, solved physics, and brought Gordon Freeman home. Reality could never compete with that. So maybe it's better that Half-Life 3 remains what it's always been. The greatest game never made. The game that exists only in our minds, where anything is possible and nothing can disappoint us.